Unexpected propaganda by which governments, organizations, and individuals persuade others to adopt a particular viewpoint by using their rational beliefs and actions. There are numerous instances throughout history of such individuals' strange tactics, ridiculous messages, and unexpected outcomes. How has propaganda been used to fight wars, sway public opinion, and affect emotions? What was the main focus of Sparrow's 1950s national campaign? So, would you like to delve deeply into this strange world? Join us in the video to defeat these odd campaigns. Throughout history, propaganda has been employed to influence attitudes and public opinion, but some campaigns are more bizarre than others. So, what was an ingenious hoax concerning the Great Moon in 1835? The New York Sun published a number of articles claiming that there was life on the moon, which is known as the Great Moon Hoax. Published in August in 1835. These articles discuss Sir John Herschel and his renowned friends. Humanoids, unicorns, and beavers were among the strange creatures that were mentioned as existing on the moon. A ruby amphitheater on the moon was also indicated. Some people believed that all of this was true, even though it was written as a joke. The article was republished nationwide after being published by the New York Sun, making the Sun highly visible and generating much discussion and conjecture. The Great Moon Hoax is described as an example of fake news. Jules Verne's The Moon and Georgia Méliès's Journey to the Moon were two other lunar fictions that were significantly impacted by it. The hoax consisted of approximately 6 articles. So, was the CIA's weird and unusual spying device for the Soviet Union a cat? The Directorate of Science and Technology launched the Central Intelligence Agency's Caustic Kit project in 1960. This project involved secretly spying on Soviet embassies and the Kremlin. To ensure its success, sound was captured and sent via a microphone and transmitter. The project cost $20 million. A cat was released in the Soviet embassy's Pahar Park in an attempt to make the first kitty project a success. However, the project failed after the cat was hit by a car. After this tragedy, Robert Wallace disputed the claim in 2013 that it was impossible to train animals according to a set plan. It would be carried out according to the plans developed for it. But this approach proved ineffectual, and in 1967, additional work was finally rejected. But was a secret tree cut down by the U.S. military during the Korean War? On August 18, 1976, 2 American soldiers were brutally attacked by Korean officers, using axes in the joint area of the demilitarized zone. This incident is known as the Korean Axe Incident. The UN officers Arthur Boniface and First Lieutenant Mark Barrett were killed while cutting down a poplar tree that was blocking a checkpoint. Under the false pretense that their leader, Kim Il-sung, had planted the tree, the North Korean army started utilizing axes and other weapons to attack South Korean and American soldiers. This senseless, barbaric attack fueled tensions between the 3 countries, leading to many crises. 3 days after this incident, the UN forces launched the Nepal operation and achieved a huge victory. A large contingent comprising heavy weapons, infantry troops, B-52 bombers, helicopters, F-15 fighter jets, and 23 military vehicles was sent in by the United States and South Korea after they agreed to cut the tree essential. Furthermore, 12,000 troops were alerted in South Korea. In just 43 minutes, this procedure was completed. The goal was to show North Korea that the United States and South Korea would not tolerate their cruelty and barbarity and would respond forcefully. So what were the disastrous outcomes of the national campaign for a small bird in China? The campaign to exterminate sparrows, which began in 1958 and is known as the world's deadliest environmental disaster, aimed at conquering nature and led to the deaths of 75 million people. A move taken during Mao's rule, the campaign encouraged people to exterminate sparrows. They believed that these creatures corrupted decisions, which reduced grain production. This campaign was also known as the Four Pests campaign, with sparrows chosen from among the pests that needed to be eradicated, such as mosquitoes, flies, and mice. In order to accomplish this, people began using obscene tactics like disturbing their tranquility, shooting them with firearms, and demolishing their nests. The campaign resulted in a locust plague that largely ruined the decisions that resulted in a major famine. In view of the negative results, the campaign was canceled, and necessary steps were taken to deal with the locusts. And what kind of weird propaganda was employed to raise employee morale in Nazi Germany? The Strength Through Joy was a ridiculous program launched by the Nazis, which was intended to keep German workers in support of the Nazi regime by rewarding them with entertainment and rewards. Adolf Hitler launched it in 1925, and it was advertised in a variety of media, such as magazines, books, posters, and television shows. This effort reinforced Nazi ideology in German society and included anti-Semitism, insults to non-Germans, opposition organizations, and war against the Allies. Hitler praised this aspect in his book Mein Kampf to bolster his propaganda, claiming that he had experienced the value of this campaign as a foot soldier during World War I. The mistaken belief that Germany's defeat in World War I was due to British propaganda, which demoralized the German people and army, was appreciated. Although German propaganda was more effective than British propaganda, Germany lost the war due to distrust and lack of cooperation. This is completely wrong from a historical perspective. The Germans took it as a belief. But how much of the ghost soldier story is true? The Ghost Army was a bizarre conspiracy devised by the United States to win World War II. In order to fool the Germans, the voices of marching soldiers were recorded and used as vocal sounds. This method was used not only for Germany, but also for France, Luxembourg, and Belgium, demonstrating their army's superiority and undermining the opposing army's intentions were the goals. This propaganda featured retired officers, engineers, and aristocrats. For this purpose, inflatable tanks, sound-producing devices, and radio operators were used. Europe gained freedom from the Nazis, and thousands of lives were saved in this phony manner. But why, in 1944, did Japan attempt to incite panic in the United States? During World War II, Japan attempted to intimidate the American military under a scheme called Project Arthritis, in which they sent nearly 9,000 explosives, the purpose of which was to create fear and panic. The United States suppressed the news to prevent panic and to dispel this perception of Japan. Japan detonated these hydrogen-filled balloons, also known as few bombs, and dropped them off the American coast. Although there was not much damage from these balloons, this particular moment became the campaign's name. This tragedy, which took place between 1944 and 1945, resulted in a small fire and a few fatalities. According to one report, only 285 out of 9,000 balloons reached this continent. Therefore, it is possible to see Japan's decision to irritate the United States as a ridiculous one. The mulberry tree bark, also called washi paper, and potato flour were used to make the balloons, which were then filled with incendiary devices. They were launched toward North America using strong winds. The Japanese believed that the United States would certainly create fear and disruption and retaliate, but the results turned out to be the opposite of theirs. So what was Joseph Stalin's bizarre propaganda campaign? In 1941, Stalin himself launched a broadcast in which he claimed that Jewish doctors had murdered Soviet leaders. This propaganda led to widespread, absurd, and unpleasant situations. Through this, feelings of hatred and prejudice against the Jewish people were instilled. As a result of this propaganda, Jewish doctors were persecuted, and their jobs were taken away. Stalin, using the newspapers, exaggerated the matter and created conditions for war. This campaign ended after Stalin's death, when Nikolai Masutov conducted an inquiry, and it was discovered that this was all Stalin's nonsense. He found that the rumor was untrue, which led to widespread rioting. And during World War II, how did America produce a deceptive nature? By employing a psychological tactic that evoked Hitler's past anti-Semitism, the United States created a deceptive atmosphere during World War II to widely disseminate anti-Nazi propaganda by breaking into the German postal system. The OSS and SOE copied newspapers printed under Nazi supervision, making subtle but damaging changes. To ensure this result, copies of original letters and newspapers were placed together in German mail bags. To make the duplicate mail look German mail trains were bombed, and copies were dropped around them, thus reaching German citizens. The campaign was largely successful, demoralizing civilians and soldiers, further disrupting the country's already disorganized communication system, and convincing Germans that strong Nazi organizations existed in Germany. Throughout history, propaganda has shaped wars, swayed emotions, and fueled bizarre campaigns that, in hindsight, seem almost unbelievable. But as strange as these stories may be, they reveal a timeless truth. Powerful narratives, whether true or false, can manipulate public perception, rally support, or even spark chaos. But what about today? In an era of social media, AI-generated content, and deepfake technology, are we more immune to propaganda, or have we simply fallen into more sophisticated traps? As we look back at these historical oddities, one thing remains clear. Propaganda is not just a relic of the past. It evolves, adapts, and continues to shape our world in ways we may not even recognize. So, the next time you come across a viral story, a political campaign, or an emotionally charged message, ask yourself, who benefits from this narrative, and what is it leading me to believe?